Hi guys, welcome back to another podcast. So today I'm going to be answering a few questions from Instagram of different topics, and I'm also going to be talking a little bit about fight and flight and how to get out of it. Okay, so if I start with the topic of fight or flight. Now a lot of people might know what this is, but Google's definition is that it is a response to an automatic psychological reaction to an event that is perceived as stressful or frightening. So some people fight, some people will flight. So for example, if you're in a mugging situation, someone's trying to mug you or kidnap you or something, some people will just freeze. That's flight. Some people will fight back, and so many people are so different. For me personally, it depends what situation I'm in, but I think if I was put in a situation such as a mugging or something, I do think I would freeze. Whereas some people are ready to fight that instantly got it in them, do you know what I mean? But everyone's different, and you can apply it to mental health and well-being and situations of your upbringing or traumatic incidences, and did you fight, did you flight? And kind of a lot of people are living in a state of fight or flight constantly. It's one or the other, and it's kind of draining, and I've definitely experienced that. I feel like you've been put through situations where you've constantly had to prove yourself to people. There may have been examples of your upbringing or certain friend groups where you were always kind of not heard, or people wouldn't take your side or wouldn't listen to what you've got to say. So that means you're in a state of constantly trying to prove yourself and get your voice heard. Unfortunately, this type of living in this fight or flight is kind of pushing you more towards the fighting side, and you can become sort of an argumentative, quite defensive person, and I'm definitely guilty of that. I can kind of snap quite quickly if I feel like I'm being attacked, and I might not be. I'm pretty quick to be on the defense and kind of over talk and over explain myself and really make sure that my point of view is heard and understood. And I've always found it difficult when people haven't understood my point of view. I've always took it very personally, and it's triggering, and a lot of people will resonate with that. But that is me kind of living in my state of survival, where instead of just relaxing and being at a state of peace where no one's opinion or anything matters, I've been living in a fight or flight situation where I'm so destined to have to prove myself and stick up for myself. The flight version of that would be to kind of back away and never take on confrontation. So it's both of them are kind of bad. You've got the other side where they're more people pleasers. In that means that their voice will literally never get heard, because they'll never speak up for themselves when something's wrong or when they don't like something, and then that can mean that their emotions get bottled up, and then maybe they will erupt one day, or they'll just have to sit with that sort of pressure on their shoulders of all these emotions, and they've never got it off their chest because they're in the flight mode. They want to run away, they want to avoid it. So it's one or the other. Both of them aren't great and are not helpful in life situations, even in work. You have to be careful and think can you take criticism well, or are you on the defense quite quickly? I feel like I can take criticism well, but sometimes, if my parents or maybe my boss has pointed out something I've done wrong, in me I feel the need to explain why I did it wrong, or there was a reason, I'm sorry, I did this, rather than just taking it and being okay, oops, took it wrong. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I always need to prove myself as to why that happened, or etc. So something I am very kind of big on talking about is getting out of this fight or flight, and I definitely feel at a place in my life where I am out of it. And I saw a TikTok, and it was when you finally get out of that fight or flight and it just feels peaceful, and I can definitely say I've got that now. And I feel like it took a lot of time, a lot of healing, a lot of therapy, and a lot of time kind of taking a step back from everyone I love and just trying to deal with it myself. I liked having my friends there to talk to and my loved ones and relying on them a little bit, but for me to step back and really try and do this by myself has taken me out of that fight or flight, because I'm not trying to impress anyone, I'm not trying to gain validation from anyone or prove myself. It doesn't matter if I'm heard or not anymore. I'm finally at a place where I like myself. I know I've done the work, and I'm doing the work to kind of undo any of my bad traits from the past. So now I can sit there, and I've seen all of me vulnerably, so I know that I'm okay with myself now, and it doesn't matter on the external sources who is going to agree with me and who isn't. So I don't need to be on the defense all the time. I can be that person now that just takes a step back and just doesn't have to voice my opinion every time it's brought up. But it's a long ride. I still will go through phases of it, because also it's part of me. I'm 20, so living with one mindset and one type of reaction to things your whole life, to then be able to change that is very hard, and it does take hard work. And this is why healing is not a straightforward journey. It's not a romanticized journey. It is hard. There is a lot of ups and downs to it. My kind of piece of advice is to get out of this fight and flight, to get out of the survival mode. Once you start leaving the survival mode and genuinely enjoying life, everything changes. For years and years I've been on survival mode, trying to impress people, trying to keep everyone on my good side, trying so hard to be heard and seen and and now I'm just at a point where it's like, but it brings me more peace to not do that, to not have to fight and constantly have this like anxiety of questioning, what does everyone think of me in this moment? Just going, I actually don't care now, because it doesn't matter who is there or not, because I know who's supposed to be there. Now it's more peaceful. Now I can just go on my day by myself, and as I've spoke about the art of being alone and everything, it makes you more in love with yourself, it makes you love yourself more, and then it actually strengthens your relationships with the people you love around you, because you have a sense of self now. You aren't trying to prove yourself and survive, you are actually enjoying your life that you've been given, and then, you know, inviting your loved ones into the life to share that kind of joy with you, rather than keeping them at arm's length, or putting them away, avoiding them. Once you have that secure sense of self and you are enjoying life, you can invite people in to share that with you. I feel like this is something I've struggled with as well, is if you want to get out of the fight or flight, you have to go back to your inner child. I feel like the inner child is hurt, and that kickstarts the fight or flight for the rest of your life, and some people will be in it till they're old. To kind of undo that work, you have to go back and speak to your inner child as if it's your own child. Take care of it in a way that maybe it wasn't taken care of before. It's kind of wasn't your fault because you had no control at that age, but now you have the control to go back and give yourself the needs that you were probably missing. I think the one thing for me is I've created my safe, secure environment myself. I, growing up with friends, with loved ones, whatever, really craved that security and wanting to feel completely looked after and safe from my best friends, from anyone. And I kind of realised that the only person that can truly do that without inconsistency is me. I have to create that safe and secure environment to be able to just go, okay, I can breathe now, like I am safe. And I think that's kind of the affirmation you have to tell yourself, is you are safe, you can leave fight or flight, you're not surviving anymore, you are living because you're allowed to live. And that is kind of the hardest part to shake, is am I safe? Like, especially I dealt with anxiety, so I used to question everything, like, am I safe? Is this secure? This feels inconsistent, I don't like that, what does this mean? Now, stepping away and creating my own security for myself, it really doesn't matter if everything else is like the most, you know, unsecure or up or down ride, because I'm secure. I feel like just floating now, letting the waves go, that if everything else is like a thunderstorm, it doesn't really matter because I'm just like flowing. And now I feel safe in that kind of flow state, whereas before I felt like I was in the thunderstorm with everyone, trying to grab onto different clouds, waiting for one cloud that felt safe. And it just wasn't happening. Even the best of people and my best friends and my loved ones and everything would try so hard to make me feel safe, but it wasn't enough for me and my upbringing. So for me to be able to leave fight and flight and to genuinely let go and just say, why am I fighting? Why am I trying so hard? Let's just enjoy what God has given to me and what comes each day and let it flow. I had to go back to the inner child and create a safe and secure environment. And to be able to do that is to forgive yourself, to look back and think like, yes, you might have bad traits, but there's nothing wrong with you. You're not a bad human being. You're not evil. To forgive yourself and then write it down and be self-aware. Being self-aware is the biggest thing. If you are not self-aware about your issues or how you are with your different types of relationships, it's very hard to ever be able to look at yourself and get to that next step and better yourself, or, you know, become the best version of yourself if you're so close-minded and just kind of say, that's how I am, this is how I live my life. To never kind of just look at like the little glimpse of light and think, can I live differently? Can I live more freely? You've got to do it. coming out of the fight or flight, like it goes back to healing your inner child. There's so many activities you can do, like even like redoing your room, making it your safe space, like at night where you genuinely enjoy being in it alone and you're not looking for a reason to go out all the time, or doing hobbies that you genuinely enjoy, and it doesn't matter if your friends don't come, like doing things that remind you of your childhood, watching certain shows, doing certain like childish hobbies, doing things that kind of bring back that innocence in you, kind of heal your inner child, and slowly your child will become and feel more safe in your own presence. I think when you're trying to get everyone else to heal your inner child, that's where you're going to seek validation and you're going to rely on people and form like anxious attachment styles, which I've definitely done. And now it's time to kind of go, I appreciate everyone and their help, but I have to kind of just make this environment myself, do the fun things, do the hobbies, my room, watch the TV shows, say no to certain plans if you are having a chill night. Like if you've got to put yourself first and make sure that you've had your safe, secure, calming days before you say yes to everyone else. And I know the people pleasers will always say yes to plans, and I've definitely been guilty of that, but if you truly want to heal and feel safe and confident in your own aura and your own self, you have to say no. If that is even like the best party in the world, to say no to just read a book and have a chill night because you know that you need that downtime, you've got to do it for yourself. I think another big thing with, if you want to feel safe, obviously you can do the mental work, you can do hobbies and activities and change your room, but another thing is all about environment. You can't really heal in the same environment that you got sick in, if that makes sense. So although it's difficult, like for example, if you've been brought up with difficult parents and you still live at home, it's very hard to get out of that environment, but there's certain things you can do. And like one for my friends I know is when they got a car, like it just gave them a different level of freedom to be able to escape. They don't have their own house, but they can have their car and go wherever they want and do what they want just for a little breather, or having your own room and kind of hiding away but making sure you're still spending quality time with other people outside of that. Healing relationships with your family is a whole topic in itself, but if you do need to kind of get away from that environment, then do make the most out of it. Same with friends. I've definitely done this, where you've been in a group and you don't realise you're kind of being blindsided by a certain group's mentalities, or they're actually making your triggers and your bad habits worse. I think for me, like a certain group would make me want to defend myself all the time and constantly be on the defence, and it was just feeding into my bad traits. Getting away from that and being with people that would never need to attack me, or I'd never need to defend myself, made me realise I was safe, and made me look back and think, maybe it wasn't me, maybe it was my environment that actually caused me to be that way. I personally think we all have bad traits, but I do think if you're in a bad environment, they're more prominent. When you're with certain friends, certain families, certain relationships, your bad traits are kind of shown to you. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's probably the only time you would have noticed them, because now you can go away and work on them. But some people and some environments do bring out the worst in you, and it's up to you to kind of acknowledge that and go, I can't be in that environment anymore if I want to better myself, and to then take a step away from that situation. But it's very hard if it's like family, or like there's a best friend or someone it's kind of hard to wiggle out of, if you know what I mean. But environment is key, so check your environment. And I think the biggest thing is you won't know until you're out of that environment. Unfortunately, it will be a long ride, but if you're feeling uncomfortable or not safe in an environment right now, get away from it, and then you can look at it from a bird's eye view and realize, like, yes, it was that environment, but also it brought out 2 of these bad traits that I'm now going to take and work on, and then tell yourself that you're now safe, now you're out of that environment. If you're in a trauma state of mind, you're in like a really scary place, or with a scary person, or family abusive, whatever it could be, I need you to get away from that, and then tell yourself that you are safe once you're away. Because now a lot of people will be in a bad toxic situation, say, and then forever feel this fight or flight throughout their life. But if you're away from the environment, you're out of it, you're safe, you're okay. And that is where it's time to start living, and rather than just existing, it's time to enjoy and just be peaceful and not have to defend yourself or have to overthink or plan anything. It is just, you are free now, you're safe, you're okay. here that I just want to, or topics that I just want to delve into a little bit. One of them is, how did you heal your inner child? But I feel like I've already spoke about that today in the fight or flight. But just as a summary, kind of go back and look at what needs did your inner child not get, and how can you give it now as an adult, and almost do a visualization activity where you're looking at your future child, or if you've got a younger sister or brother, you can visualize them as your inner child and do activities and things that make you feel safe, and forgive yourself and realize that, especially as a child, a lot of things were not your fault. You were young, so make yourself feel safe and loved. And yeah, there is loads of content about that on my page if you want to look more into it. Another one is, how did I get into healing? I always see the content, but I'm not sure where to start. So it kind of, for me, it took me to hit rock bottom to really realise that I had quite a lot of things I needed to work on. But for some people, it's like a gradual thing. It's just an interest. They're interested in bettering themselves' well-being. But if I want to give a bit of advice, if you're going from the start is always to look at your bad traits. Why are you an argumentative person? Do you shut down? Do you avoid people? Why is that? And then you write it down, and you really go back from even your birth, and you trace all of the traumatic things that have gone on in your life, even if you don't feel like they're traumatic, just certain characters that have come into your life. Yeah, there'll be certain characters, certain points of your life where it might have affected you or made these bad traits kind of manifest itself and occur. So that's where I started. I would look at, why am I this way? And then I could forgive myself. It wasn't an excuse, but it was more like, okay, this makes sense now. How can I change it or compromise or alter it? And then I started my journey of like, there are so many things that really did affect me, and it's time to look into those. That's where I'd start, and then healing just goes on forever. Like, it's not one straight line. Like, there's all these branches, and even today I might go on a walk later and there could be something that leads me to think about this thing over there, and tomorrow I'll think about this over here. So it kind of is like a big wave and like such a big topic. But I think inner child work is key. Bad traits, looking at your friendships, your relationships, your bonds of families, how are they as well. I think a key thing for me has been like accepting why other people are the way they are, and they don't mean it. It's probably a product of their upbringing. Again, not an excuse, but it makes you a more understanding and empathetic person as to why people do certain things to you or in general. Religion was kind of like a hand-in-hand part with my healing, and I kind of just went down that line of learning how to pray and trust God and genuinely trust him, not just kind of ask for things when I needed them, but gratitude, actually sitting down and sometimes never asking or praying for anything, just evaluating your days and being grateful for the small things. The more you practice gratitude, the happier you are, like 100%. So there's like a million different topics, and you'll see this amongst my page, but from the very beginning it is inner child work, bad traits, and looking at your life from birth. And that's called psychoanalysis, or psycho, I'm probably going to get it wrong, but there's a specific type of therapy that I'll put in the caption, which I did, and they do that. Basically, they'll go back and look at all of your different relationships from birth and how that might have impacted you as to the way you are now. And that, I think, just saved me, really. It made me understand everything of why I am the way I am and what can I do now to fix that, basically. Okay, so someone said, I'd love an episode about separation anxiety / finding yourself again after losing it in a relationship. Separational anxiety is probably something I can kind of relate to. I was quite a clingy person. Like, I loved my friends, I loved my partner, I'd like really rely on them. But it's so bad. You just can't do it, but it is the hardest thing. And if you're thinking about this, looking into anxious attachment styles really helped me. Again, like talking about how I got into healing. For me, when I realised how attached I got to people, what really helped me is to understand why. I feel like that's the thing with everything in healing, is the question why. So for me, it was like, why am I this way? And I looked into anxious attachment styles and how they can manifest from your upbringing and things, and it made so much sense. And I said, okay, it makes sense, but it's not an excuse. Now I need to learn the art of compromise and boundaries, how to give people their space, how to not expect so much, but it is really difficult. But I think my best piece of advice is to find your personality. And as you said in the second part of the question, finding yourself again after losing it in a relationship, all of this, what you're talking about, is you need to go out and find what your hobbies are. Who are you? What makes you you? And without anyone else. So what are your hobbies that you could do by yourself? What music do you like? What TV shows you like? And this is something I did, I think, like quite a few years ago. I feel like I didn't really have a sense of identity. I kind of just like would mirror like all my friendship groups and different friends and like try and impress people. So I went for a phase where I had to sit down and go, well, no, like who is Maisie? Who am I? And that's kind of what I did, is what music do I actually like? What hobbies do I actually like? What is me? Like, what would people say that's a Maisie thing, even if it's weird, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And I'll admit, like, it took me a while, even up to, like, probably this year. Like, there's some things that I would, like, hide or, like, wouldn't really talk about, or I would, and people would, like, not make fun of me, but, like, be like, oh, that's a bit weird, or, like, oh, I'm not really into that. And it was such, like, an innocent comment, but, again, with the whole fight or flight thing, I'd be on the defence, trying to prove myself, or, oh, actually, I don't like it, trying to impress them. And I realised I just need to relax, and if I like something, I do, and it's part of me, and the right people will also be supportive of that, whatever it could be, as long as it's not, like, really, really strange and dangerous. So finding yourself, and if you've been in a relationship and someone hasn't really like let you be yourself, then you need to find yourself again from the beginning. You know, who were you before that person? Who are you after? I feel like it, you know, if someone's kind of taken your spark away, it's like the worst thing. You've got to find someone that allows you to be you, your crazy, authentic self. But even in those types of relationships, like, you can still lose part of yourself. So definitely sitting down and like writing a physical list or a mind map of what makes up you. And then with that will help with your separation anxiety, because you'll start to become more comforted in your own presence and your own hobbies. I think for me, I realised I had some hobbies that my friends really were not interested in, so I kind of had to force myself to go and enjoy it by myself because no one else wanted to join in. And that's really good though, because you'll start to realise there's some things you love doing that you have to do by yourself, and then you don't rely as much on the presence of others around you. So all of that in a nutshell is about finding yourself and really like breaking it down. But I think with separation anxiety as well, take it slow and talk about it, communicate, because if you're quite a clingy person and you're not really communicating why or like what needs you need, you can end up pushing people away. Then you want to find the right people as well, people that understand you, because if you meet someone that's a real avoidant attachment style, it's really difficult to make it work, because they'll see the world in one light and you'll see the world in another light, and I feel like it's very hard to see eye to eye in that situation. So try and surround yourself with people that are a little bit more similar to you, but you also don't want someone that's the exact attachment style as you, because it can become a bit obsessive. So, you know, taking a step back and just have some time to yourself to figure out exactly who you are, what you want, and force yourself to be in the presence of only yourself, even if it's like the most lonely thing in the world. If you've got separation anxiety, it's all about exposure therapy, getting used to the fact of not having certain people around on your call, at your beckoning. Expose yourself to it bit by bit. Don't overwhelm yourself and trigger yourself, but just bit by bit. Spend more time by yourself, do more things, you know, even if it's like going to get a coffee by yourself or going to the gym, going on a walk. I want to do a whole series about doing things that people are too afraid to do by themselves, because that is where you kind of find so much love and comfort in your own presence, your own company. I'm going to end this podcast here, but if you look at my Instagram, there is an anonymous link, so if you want to leave any questions for a future podcast like these, then you can put it there. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.